So a brand new Pro Bowler was just released that happens to play at the Eagles' biggest position of need. But have the Birds actually called, and would Jaire Alexander want to come to Philadelphia? Plus, some other trade drama is already brewing around the league that is going to help the Birds, and why this year's Eagles minicamp is already off to a different start. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. As Philadelphia wraps up their one and only mandatory practice of the offseason, all eyes for some reason have shifted away from the NovaCare fields and onto the man in charge of the Birds roster. A man who told us the Birds were not going to spend big this offseason, and yet once again has been brought to the forefront of the latest free agent drama. First though, I've been out of town on vacation with my family the past couple of days, so I've been traveling a lot. I want to get this video up though first to go ahead and break down Jaire Alexander's situation, and then my next video later on this week will have a full mandatory minicamp recap, so less minicamp news in this video, more free agent stuff, but the minicamp news is coming. Make sure to stay tuned. Now quickly, when it comes to filling roster spots, Philadelphia used up another one this weekend by signing former Jaguars 2024 fifth-round running back Kelian Robinson. And personally, I think Robinson brings a lot of depth to a relatively light running back room. And by light, let me just stop you there for a second. I do mean light behind the top three guys, because obviously Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, and A.J. Dillon are all going to make this roster. The fourth running back, though, or a practice squad guy, remains up in the air. Robinson averaged 6.6 yards per carry in the SEC and then was an impact player in the Jacksonville Jaguars special teams unit his rookie season in 2024. With both punt and kick return spots wide open currently on the Eagles roster, he should be very much in play for at least a practice squad spot as a running back, in my opinion, at worst in Philadelphia. Time will tell, but I like this move a lot simply because Philadelphia did not draft a running back this past April and needed to add some more depth heading into training camp. Now, of course, another player a lot of Eagle fans are excited about and want to see in Eagles green is the new released Pro Bowl cornerback Jaire Alexander. A player the Packers still technically owe a ton of money to, but ended up having to cut just a few days ago due to a lack of trade interest, especially around the NFL draft. And let's just get this right out of the way, Jaire Alexander is an excellent cornerback. He's very young, only 28, and when healthy is as elite as they come. Problem is, of course, he can't stay healthy. That's why the Packers are letting him go. He's only played 14 total games over the past 2 seasons. But of course, Philadelphia's one main question mark heading into training camp is the secondary, and specifically the cornerback spot opposite of Kelian Mitchell. And so whenever a Pro Bowler like an Alexander comes available in the open market, you have to wonder, did the Eagles or will they make a phone call? Which we do know right now, according to Josina Anderson, that some 6+ teams have called Alexander's agent so far. The talking heads around the league have all mentioned Jaire's name alongside the Philadelphia Eagles.
Can't you just see Jaire not even playing on a full complement of snap or whatever the deal is, like how he's happy, they're happy, whatever. He's playing with like a crazy contender and he just goes out there and makes like that game-breaking play in some meaningful, crazy ass game against the Commanders.
Absolutely. And especially with, Fangio would probably love getting his hands on him.
Yeah.
It allows him to use some of those other pieces, take advantage of the versatility he has with Cooper DeJean and some of those other pieces. It does make a lot of sense.
There's the team I would like to throw into the equation. What about the Philadelphia Eagles?
The Eagles, if they acquire Jaire Alexander, I do think they become even more unstoppable because now you just can manipulate your deck even better and put the best players on the field.
Also, I want to give a massive shout out to the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek. The Eagles' entire 2025 schedule is finally here. If you want to go to the link to watch the Birds, well, the #1 rated ticketing app, SeatGeek, is your place to go. Whether it's the home opener versus the Dallas Cowboys, that one's going to be pretty fun. Or how about a Sunday night matchup in November versus the Detroit Lions? SeatGeek has every single Eagles game this season, both home and away, for you to choose from. Plus, SeatGeek also has tickets for all Philadelphia sporting events, whether it's Phillies or Flyers or eventually the Sixers again, as well as comedy shows, music festivals, and a whole lot more, with over 70,000 listed events. The past couple of years, I've used SeatGeek for every single time I've made a trip out to Philadelphia to watch the Birds in person, because their rating system on a scale of 1 to 10 makes it so darn easy to score a great deal. Just look for the green dots. That, of course, means good deal. Yellow and red, I stay away from those. Get a green dot deal, and you're going to love it. So, of course, if you're grabbing tickets anytime soon, just download the SeatGeek app, link down below in my description box, and use promo code MOTT10, add it to your account, and get 10% off your purchase of tickets. We know you want to go to Eagles games. We know you're buying tickets, so go ahead and use SeatGeek to help you out. So, do we know the Eagles have called? No. Are a lot of people linking Philadelphia, obviously, to Jaire Alexander? Yes. Do they have an opening at cornerback? Sure. And so you see why this has become a hot topic in Philadelphia right now. But just so you guys understand, there's no official reporting as of yet tying Alexander to Philadelphia. Still, there are plenty of reasons to think that Alexander and Philadelphia make a ton of sense, including the fact that both Jaire and the current Eagles DB coach Christian Parker had a relationship whenever Parker was in Green Bay, and apparently are still very close to this day. He also is from Philadelphia and, funny enough, shares the same February 9th birthday with Saquon Barkley and Cooper DeJean. And from a playing standpoint on the football field, when actually healthy, this past season, he graded out similar to Kelian Mitchell and Darius Slay according to PFF. So, yeah, he would be a great fit. If he could stay healthy, I would love him in Philadelphia. The main question, as always, with all these free agent or trade options is, what is the price and would he take a discount to come to Philadelphia? We have to remember, Philadelphia would not match the $10 million to Steelers gave Big Play Slay on a one-year deal this offseason. Nor would they even get close to, Isaiah Rodgers' $7 million a year deal in Minnesota? For Howie to actually pull the trigger, the numbers have to be less than $10 million and $7 million, in my opinion. That means a very team-friendly deal with a heavy emphasis on incentives and player bonuses if Jaire Alexander were to actually reach those numbers. So the ball really goes into Alexander's court. Do you want a ring chase or do you want to get another big contract? If he wants the ring chase, then Philadelphia is the perfect spot for him. Come to the Birds, play alongside Kelian Mitchell, practice every single day against, obviously, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and you're going to have a very good chance at obviously making the playoffs and going deep, maybe to another Super Bowl. But, as I mentioned earlier, there are about 6 teams, if not more, who have called Jaire Alexander. I mean, there's a strong chance that another team that actually has deeper pockets could make a much larger offer. There is an elephant in the room, though, and that elephant's name is Kelian Ringo, because Kelian Ringo hinges this entire deal whether it lives or actually dies. Obviously, money plays a massive factor, but if Philadelphia internally loves Kelian Ringo, then they're never going to call Jaire Alexander because Ringo's been in-house, obviously he's loved by his teammates, and is on a much cheaper contract. But they're not sold on Kelian Ringo, and they want to go ahead and add competition or bring in a Pro Bowler, then you make a phone call to Jaire Alexander's agent and try and get a deal done. The problem, though, is that unlike, let's say, a Justin Simmons, who clearly wants to be a Philadelphia Eagle and will wait till deep into training camp to sign with the Birds, my guess is the Alexander sweepstakes will pick up very, very quickly, meaning that if the Birds want to make a move, they got to do it likely before training camp even begins. In the end, if I was making the decision, I would sign Alexander for the right price. If he's healthy, he could be a much younger version of Darius Slay and keep this Bird secondary that locked down everybody last year elite for many years to come. Curious y'all's thoughts on this? Let me know down below. If the price is right, would you make the call? Now, one good bit of news surrounding the Birds' mandatory minicamp was that every single player was on the football field and practicing in some capacity at the Novacare Complex on Tuesday. Which might not sound like a big deal until you look around the league elsewhere and notice that, for instance, TJ Watt is holding out of Steelers minicamp due to a contract issue. Likewise, Trey Hendrickson was also a no-show at Bengals minicamp and continues to be very dug in versus Cincinnati's front office because, once again, he wants a brand new deal. Last but not least, the media's favorite team to upset the Eagles this season, the one that gave up 55 points in the NFC Championship game to the Birds, well, their top receiver, Terry McLaurin, is also holding out of Commanders minicamp due to wanting a new deal. Deanna Rossini pointed out yesterday he's, quote, frustrated with contract negotiations. Now, will, of course, Scary Terry get a new deal before the start of the season? I bet he will. But still, this whole video today is one big advertisement for Howie Roseman and why the Eagles front office is king. Unlike, say, the Packers and Jaire Alexander, Howie was able to actually get something in return for his often injured Bryce Huff. And unlike the Steelers, Bengals, and Commanders, the Eagles have zero problems paying their stars early and made sure that no one was disgruntled or held out of mandatory minicamp. Thumbs up for that. Now back to the secondary issue, and myself and Josh Davis talked a lot about this question, of course, a couple of days ago during our live stream, came to the conclusion that whoever wins the starting job might not be determined for many weeks to come, as right now Philadelphia has a lot of question marks up in the air regarding Kelian Ringo, and obviously who plays alongside Reed Blankenship, and Vic Fangio might not decide until a couple of weeks into actual August. Safety spot, you mentioned Sidney Brown. I think most of us would assume that Sidney Brown is kind of maybe the incumbent, even though he hasn't been like the starter safety, but he's been getting the majority of starting reps opposite of Reed Blankenship right now. I do think you're correct in saying that his job is definitely the least safe out of anybody. So, I would consider Kelian Ringo's job a lot more safe after OTAs than I would Sidney Brown. And I think the drafting of Drew Makuba plays a big role in that. But Vic Fangio also mentioned Tristan McCollum as a name that he made sure to kind of add into that group. Long shot to win the job, but Philly has liked Tristan McCullum for a while, and he technically has as much, if not more, actual on-field experience than Sidney Brown because he's not been hurt the past year. Mm-hmm. And then you also got to go ahead and think about the Cooper DeJean situation, which we've talked about a lot on our shows the past couple of days. Vic Fangio is very serious about Cooper DeJean potentially being a starter at safety in base packages. Now, that doesn't mean he starts in any of the other packages. They were only in base like 176 times, he said last season. But there's a very real scenario where it's, Kelian Ringo, Kelian Mitchell, Reed Blankenship, and then you have Cooper DeJean back there because they view Coop as such a weapon that they can't let him sit in any base packages or any packages in general. So Sidney Brown, I think, has the tools. He has the intangibles. He's definitely quick enough and physical enough to be a starting safety. But you're right in that Vic Fangio, at least in the press conference yesterday, didn't seem to kind of be like, yeah, it's Sidney Brown, and then, we'll see what happens. It's like Sidney Brown is one of them. Then there's Cooper DeJean. Then there's Tristan McCullum. And we forget that they love Drew Makuba. So that's going to be a very interesting battle to see once we get past that initial first week of training camp where it'll probably be Brown as the just default starter, and then they'll swap in who's actually ready.
Yeah, and you've got all the, as you said, training camp there, but you have the preseason games. And I thought it was interesting, too, because Fangio, he's like asked about specifically the competition and where that takes it or how long it takes to figure out who your guy is. And he's basically, well, it'll be once it happens, it's going to take training camps. It's going to take a couple preseason games maybe. So just because we see even Sidney Brown, who got some first-team reps out there in OTAs, like it's somewhat meaningless because we've seen before that this case in point of like, hey, you got other guys out there who are getting those first-team reps, but then we get to training camp and you could go multiple weeks. I brought this up on the live stream last night with Anthony, but talking about like Nakobe Dean, when we were trying to read the tea leaves last year of training camp, it's like, oh man, hey, Devin White's getting those first-team reps.
Yes.
Nakobe Dean, second team, maybe even third team. It wasn't until very close to that Brazil game that it was like, oh, hey, okay, hey, there's Nakobe Dean. Yeah, he's getting some of those reps. Maybe he's got a chance. And then all of a sudden, Devin White doesn't make the trip. Nakobe's your starter. The rest is history. So, yeah, there's Fangio likes to play that game, of course, of getting guys the reps with a bunch of different groups. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I'm right there with you. Like safety of just about, every position out there has that type of competition where you could, I think you could legitimately make a case. I know we've seen it in the comment section. You're going to get to some of those, also the super chats, but you could legitimately make a case for if Sidney Brown's your guy, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
If you got it as a Drew Makuba, absolutely. He got drafted very high for a reason. Tristan McCollum, I don't know necessarily as much, but Vic Fangio brings him out, and so it's like, all right, if he says his name, you go ahead and throw that in there. Andre Sam is a guy that a couple of different beat writers have thrown out as
that's another one.
A guy they like to potentially make the roster, maybe even push for a starting spot. So
Lewis Cine, George Bulldog.
There is Lewis Cine.
They rotated him in there as well. So
he's not
crazy.
gotten,
there's like 7 of them. Six of them.
Yeah, there's tons. It's Reed Blankenship and then whoever else you want to throw out there. It is interesting to me so far, and I know we get comments about this too. Not to knock Lewis Cine too much. But he hasn't gotten as much. He's getting some of those reps, yes, but he hasn't gotten as much. Like I'll see some beat writers go, hey, Andre Sam, keep an eye out for. Hey, there's Sidney Brown. Okay, he's getting the first team reps. Andrew Makuba, obviously draft pick. Lewis Cine, not much. Not like it's zero, but I think he's got a good ways to go if, for one, he's going to make the roster, and then also especially try to get a starter spot. But we'll see. Shout out
one
to
thing quickly,
Eagle
just...
One.
Give me 1 sec. Just a quick thought here on Drew Makuba too, in terms of he's been a little quieter. I saw the comments asking, what's Drew Makuba been doing? A little quiet during OTAs, but Fangio has shown us the past couple of years that he doesn't really want to rush any of his rookies. Obviously, Quinyon Mitchell was the one that they kind of really put out there to be the starter week 1. But DeJean could have played week 1 health-wise. It was the fact that Vic Fangio didn't think he was ready, and they really slow-rolled his progress. You have to prove to Vic Fangio that you're 100% ready to go up here on his defense before he puts you on the field. And so Makuba could be a scenario just like Cooper DeJean last year, where they slow-roll him for a couple of weeks, and then by the time we get to week 5, 6, 7, it's like, you know what? He is the best player, and I trust him. Now we go ahead and go out. And so we didn't see a lot of Makuba getting starter reps. I know he rotated in there. Like you mentioned, Cine didn't get a ton, but it doesn't mean that he's not going to be a great player early. It might mean he's just a little slower just because Vic Fangio has a lot in his defenses. You got to learn a lot of new terminology, and he wants to trust you 100%, and then he'll just give you the keys to the castle. Now, as mentioned at the beginning, I was traveling the past couple of days on vacation with my family, and so a little bit shorter of a show today. A full-length show is coming later on this week, I think Thursday. Full minicamp recap, full practice highlights, everything you guys know and love. Be sure to go ahead and subscribe. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.